Hi lovelies, welcome to the Witch's Cookery and a happy Beltane to you! Depending on where you are geographically, spiritually or culturally located, you might be celebrating Beltane, Tanzen in Mai, Walpurgisnacht. Excuse you, I'm trying to film a video! May Day or any other spring festival celebrating the abundant beauty of nature. Is also part of the abundant beauty of nature. Attention whore. And in the past I've made multiple videos on the significance and history of Beltane, the traditions of the celebration. So if you want to have inspiration how to celebrate Beltane as a modern day witch, I'm gonna link those videos down below. But today we're actually focusing on one aspect only of Beltane and really deep diving into it. And it's something that is very, very easy to spot. Flowers and blossoms. We have been observing the first signs of returning life when we celebrated Ostara and we saw all the budding beauty just waiting to blossom again, and now at Beltane it's finally time and nature is decked out in her most beautiful dress. Personally, I find the month of May one of the most magical. So today I will be sharing a lot about flower magic, florography, simple spells and rituals that you can do involving those lovely spring blossoms, and of course lots and lots of delectable Beltane kitchen witchery. But let's first use the sunshine on this glorious day to spot what is blooming. Vámonos! There truly are 1,000 ways to work magic with plants, herbs, flowers and blossoms. Some are based in folk belief, others in history, in religious symbolism, herbal medicine, and other ways again are more intuitive. Finding the correct way for you is to find something that you enjoy and that works for your personal circumstances. For example, should you live out in the countryside and you can forage to your heart's content, it is much easier to work directly with the plants, put them in your cooking, in your baking, in your spells, in your rituals. But if you live maybe in a more urban area, it's harder to actually forage for plants. However, that does not mean that you cannot work plant magic. There is still a lot that the flowers and blossoms, now so abundantly and beautifully shown in nature, can add to your personal practice and life. One very simple way to work your springtime Beltane magic is to do a flower divination. For that, you simply can go on a spring walk in your local park, the woods, along pretty gardens, or anywhere else where there is colorful blossoms to spot. Then you can formulate a question in your mind, and that can just be a question relating to your own life, something that you would want more insight and reflection on. Once you have that question formulated, keep your eyes peeled and see if there's any flower or blossom that seems to draw you in. Don't make an entire science out of it, just follow your intuition and your gut. And once you have found that flower, you can either pick it or leave it on the plant itself, but take the mindful time to really study it. How does it look like? What type of flower is it? What color is it? How many petals might it have? In what state is it? In what growth state is it? And how does all of that relate to your question? What is the secret message that this flower or blossom can give you? The insight that you gain from it. We truly can make nature a mirror of our own thoughts and feelings if we tune in mindfully and with our intuition. And of course, there's a very delicious way to honor this flower festival without actually having to go out and forage. And that's by making these delicious little apple roses, and I absolutely recommend them as a fancy Beltane dessert or for a springtime picnic, because they are super easy to make, but they look very impressive. In order to make these apple roses, you can cheat a little bit and get just some phyllo dough from the supermarket, as we did here. You spread it out and then you cut it in about, depending on how big your dough is, we cut it in 6 equal parts. Next, we want to spread a little bit of jam on it. You can also mix that in with cinnamon or with sugar. We used an apricot jam, but you could also, for example, use rose blossom jam if you'd like. Then next we need apples sliced in very thin slices. And in order to have those apple slices be bendable, you want to pop them in the microwave for about 3 minutes. And be careful, because when they come out, they're very, very hot, but you can really then bend them. If you don't have a microwave, obvious, you could also just cook them in a little bit of water for a while. Then you layer them on the dough so they slightly overlap. Flap the dough on top and then roll them up into little roses and put them in silicone forms or in cupcake shapes. Now mine were rose shaped, but that is not necessarily, it works just as well in round one. You pop them in the oven for about 20 minutes or so until the dough starts to brown, and then it comes out perfection. Dust it with a little bit of sugar if you like. So good. If you'd like an approach that is less focused on your own fantasy and intuition and more on bookish knowledge, you can always work with plants, flowers and blossoms from a more traditional frame of reference. And here we also can pick from different schools of thought. Obviously, you can always consult your local guidebooks about folklore of the native plants, because I can promise you, in every culture, plants have some sort of lore and significance behind them, because back in the days when people didn't really have science and the internet, free access to book yet, they had to make sense of the world around them, and oftentimes that also included plants and flowers that were used to make healing tinctures that were consumed in food and used in what we now would title potions to bring on desired effects. They were named due to the observations that people made about them, or due to the stories people believed around them, the shape their leaves had, or their ritualistic use. Another fun way to look at magical correspondences of plants is to look into florography. You might also know it as the secret language of flowers, which it was titled when it got popular in Victorian England, North America and France during the 19th century. The language of flowers is basically a cryptological communication through the use or arrangement of flowers, either in the parlor where you would invite people in, or by giving them little bouquets. Oftentimes this allowed the sender to express feelings of romance or courtship, which were absolutely not spoken aloud in Victorian society. There were whole dictionaries of florography written in multiple languages that assigned specific plants and blossoms and also their color to a sentiment, message or emotion. And believe it or not, some flowers, like the next one we'll see here, are excellent messengers for shadow work. If that sounds intriguing, I have a little something for you. As you might have spotted, for every holiday on the Wheel of Year, I do a 2-week email course on my website that you can do in the comfort of your own home and in your own time, that gives you every day an idea, activity, spell, ritual, recipe or meditation on seasonal energies, so you can really combine more of your magic practice into your mundane, enriching your life, get a bigger repertoire on witchcraft and feel more in tune with yourself and the world around you. So if you want to give it a try and celebrate the seasonal energies around Beltane, check out the link in the description box where I linked you the Beltane course. These seasonal witchcraft courses are available worldwide and you immediately get them in your inbox. Now, after hearing all of that, you might think to yourself, well, I'm not really that convinced in my own intuitive strength to necessarily do flower divination, and I also really don't know anything about plant folklore. When working with flowers or herbs in general in a magical way, you don't always need a ton of knowledge. You don't need to know about folklore, you don't necessarily need to know about growth cycles, you don't actually need to be able to distinguish a plant. Even without having any of those skills, you can still work with flowers in a different way that might be much more approachable. And that is through your personal relationship with a plant. And with that, I don't mean you have to know everything there is to know about this plant. This just means you need some sort of flower or plant that you have memories with. For me, for example, that is the dandelion. My garden is filled with those cheerful yellow flowers, and they are the embodiment of Beltane for me. They are so strong and resilient, they can even grow through asphalt and in the most unlikely places, so they're also to spot in urban areas. They're connected to fertility, and after all, Beltane is a fertility holiday because their little seeds can carry far with the wind and, due to the big dismay of my neighbors, spread like crazy. I have such fond memories of making dandelion crowns and necklaces for my grandma and myself. And then of course a few weeks later, when the garden was filled with the big blow balls, making wishes and having them being carried into the wind. And this felt absolutely magical. So if I look at all those memories, I do have immediate associations with dandelion and what it means to me. It stands for happiness, childlike wonder, dreams, hopes, but also strength and resilience. And when this channel was born 4 years ago, my very first video I made with dandelion, and I made vegan dandelion honey, which you see me making here as well for the lovely people that are now attending my Beltane retreat. And this was not on a whim. Obviously, when I started this channel, we were just at the beginning of a pandemic. My life had completely changed. I had just moved countries and I was in a spot where I did not necessarily felt as if I fitted there because I was an absolute city girl. I had hopes and dreams for the future that I could pursue a more creative path, work from home and close with my kids. And I decided to make this magical potion using dandelion from my garden, stirring my hopes and dreams and intentions in there, and make it my first video for this very channel that would become my future and my work that allowed my dreams to become a reality. With that, I am saying it doesn't matter what a book says about the correspondences of a plant if you have a different feeling towards it. And to be very honest, I still don't know what the actual significance of dandelion might be according to Scott Cunningham or whoever else is out there writing their books, but for me it had this specific meaning and it did hold this specific power, and that's how I utilized it. Now you might ask yourself, what even is vegan dandelion honey and how can I get my grab a little hands on it? Well, it's fairly easy to make. All you need is a ton of dandelion. Actually, I made my kids pick all of those. I know, child labor. Sorry. But they had fun doing it, so I guess it's okay. You need around, let's say, 400 dandelions, and you only want to use the yellow parts because all the green parts of the dandelions are fantastic in, for example, salads, but they're very bitter. So make sure you only use the blossoms. Ideally, you don't even want to wash the blossoms, but since they're from the garden and my dog runs around there everywhere, we did give them a quick rinse, and then you just put some water over it, cook them for about 15 minutes in that water so it starts to release the flavor, and then you want to let them sit in there with a little bit of lemon for about 24 hours. Then you add sugar. How much sugar you add is dependent on how much water you add. You add it in parts 1 to 1. So if I would use a liter of water, I would use a kilogram of sugar. I use 2 liters of water to 2 kilograms of sugar in this, put it in, and then I very carefully bring it to a boil. You do wanna stir. And then you want to reduce the heat so it kind of simmers for quite a couple of hours. It gets thicker and thicker, so make sure you stir regularly and make sure you keep it away from little hands because sugar syrup gets hot. Like you can properly burn yourself with that. Like it could technically be used as a weapon, right? So it gets thicker and thicker. You can always spread it on a little plate and see if it's already getting, like, when it cools down, stretchy, like real honey, and it gets darker the more it cooks and the reddier it gets. And then you're just gonna fill it in sterilized or cooked out containers, and it holds fairly long, like I would say about 6 months to a year, possibly longer, depending on how much sugar you have used and how hygienic you were when making it. It tastes fantastic in yogurt, over pancakes, on a buttered bread. Delicious, delicious. I hope you enjoy. Dude, I really need to film now. I only have a couple of minutes left. Please. Can you just scoot? Man. Look, there's your ladies. Go and... Go and be fertile. Come on. Whoosh. Whoosh. Henry, come on, please.